Hello and welcome back to Shell Acting Insights. So, you got an audition. Great, well done. Whether you got it through your agent or you got it on your own by looking in Facebook or at some casting website of some sort, good for you. What do? Okay, almost all of them are going to be self-taped. That you know for sure. So in order to deliver a self-taped audition, you should be off book because basically you're by yourself. You have enough time. You can have like 20 takes if you want. So, if your reader's willing to do that. But you can do that. So you should be off book. It's pretty much expected that you are off book. Off book means you know the lines. You don't need to look at the script or book. In a play, they're books, right? So came from that, off book. Don't need the book. Got it. You should prep. There are different ways to prep to work your skills and that sort of thing. As a director, I prefer to work with actors who are working on their instincts. They're well prepped. They know their lines. They know the scene. They understand what's going on. They have a good idea of the whole atmosphere of the scene and so on, how it fits in with the overall story. But, it's good to have them really connected to their instincts and their impulses so that they follow those when they happen. So I like actors. I like working with actors like that. They're also a little more easier to direct. So, that takes time to learn and understand. And I completely recommend you go to acting classes and learn how to do that because it's not something that's innate in every person. So you can really learn how to do that on set, and it's best for the director because you add to the scene, you look realistic, and you can actually take direction and go in a different way when requested, which is really, really important. Okay, so what do you do to prepare? Well, of course, you got to read the script. Number one, I'm big on you understanding all the words in the script. Very big on that. Without understanding, you're going to have sort of a block there between you and the character or the scene. So that's not cool, or you misinterpret it entirely. So you don't want to do that. Make sure you raise the bar for yourself on understanding the language you're working in, English in this case, I hope. Well, whatever. But yeah, so understand all the words, number one. Number two, where's your character? Why are they there? What are they doing there? Who are they talking to? What brought them there? What do they want? Where are they exactly? Is it in a room? Is it outside? What is it? What time of day is it? All these things are important to understand because you're the character. The character knows all those things when they're there. So you must know all those things. So you need to figure it out. If it's not in the text, then you can create it so that you are certain of it. You can create it. It's okay. It doesn't have to be right. It has to work for you. It could be entirely wrong because it's not in the script that you've been given, and yet with the whole story, it's different, but that's okay. You have to create it, and you have to be certain of it, and it has to work for you, and you'll discover it for yourself. So I'll get into that a little more. One of the key things that you need to have, and this is extremely important, is you need to discover the moment before, okay? The moment before is absolutely critical to your work as an actor. You must discover it for yourself. Why? Because it's not written, okay? The way film scripts are written, TV scripts, they have scenes. Scenes have beginnings and scenes have ends. But the life of the character, the life in the movie doesn't have beginning and ends like that. The character's alive before the scene. So it's just not written. So you have to discover that. Like, what is that moment for? And I mean immediately before. I don't mean, a couple hours before that they had a beer or two and now they're feeling like a little bit tired. No, that's not it. It's what is it right immediately before? Are they excited about walking into that room they're going to walk into? Are they nervous? Are they afraid? what's happening and why, what drove them to that point to get into the room, what made you speak to this person that you're talking to, all of those things. That moment before is so key. I can't tell you, even when I'm directing actors, I can tell when the moment before is really not figured out, it's not worked out, it's not been discovered by the character, by the actor. So I will help them with that. I may have an idea, then they'll grab onto it and use it, or they, I just we have a little question and answer period, a little chat, about it, and they'll go, okay, I get it, I know what I need to do. Because in an audition especially, but on set as well, you got to be in the scene before the scene starts. And because it's not written, you have to invent it. And it just has to work. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be exact, whatever that is, because it's not there anyway. But it just has to work and make sense to you. You must be certain of it. Your certainty is really helpful in casting because we need to see confidence. And confidence tells everyone that you know what you're doing. And that's really important, of course, because, many reasons. You obviously know them. So you need to discover it. It's not always the first thing you think of. Oh, this is what's happening. Try that. Try something the opposite of that, whatever it is. Let's say you're going into this room and you're so confident you're just going to blow the door open and annihilate everybody in the room with your statement. Okay, cool, great. So you try that. It's like, yeah, that works pretty good. Now try something else, maybe a negative, the opposite, a negative of it. Like, okay, I'm really nervous about it and I'm not so sure, but I'm going to blurt it out anyway. So you walk in and you do that. So you try that. Maybe that works better. I don't know. You got to discover it. Basically, that's my point. So you got to try other things. This is part of working the scene. This also helps you discover character, what the character is thinking and doing. Acting is physical. This is something you have to know for sure. Acting is physical. Okay, so you're in the confines of your self-tape room. You set up your gear. You don't have a ton of space, but you have some space. So in that space, you should be free to move somewhat. You got a frame like this, but small movements like turning away, pulling back, leaning forward have a lot of impact. If you're standing, I'm sitting in this particular video, but if you're standing, which I recommend, by the way, that you stand for most of your auditions, if not all, just one step in makes a huge difference in what the message is and what you're doing. If you're arriving into the scene, just step out 2 steps, step in, step closer, come back, work these things out. But of course, they have to be impulsive. They have to fit the scene and the situation and what's going on with that character at that moment. You got to make sure of that. Otherwise, it's just not going to be right. It's going to be too phony. It's not going to be good. So work that out. Make sure you've got that in place. You worked it. You've got room to do that, and your natural ability is there. Okay. Like I said earlier in the other one, if you have a prop, it's amazing what a prop can do to ground an actor. It is something else. If the actor's having a little trouble getting in the scene, give them a prop. It's a well-known thing. And when you're doing self-tapes, you can really prop it out. I mean, you can. You can have pots and pans and plates and knives and forks and cups and coffee and food and whatever you want. My word of caution on that is don't complicate the scene with props. Okay, just don't. If you do have props that you feel are necessary and help ground you in the scene, try to keep them out of the frame because they're really not the story. They're just there to facilitate business and activity and action. If you got a pot here and you're stirring away, it's like, I got to get this done, whatever. So it's just not in there, but the action's there, not miming like I'm doing. But you got real action there. That's really, really good. That's helpful. So self-tapes give you that liberty, that freedom to do that. And it's okay to do that. It will be helpful at times. But sometimes there's too many, so you got to cut them right down to 0 sometimes. Okay, so that's one thing. When you go to a real live audition, props are kind of a no-no, okay? They're limited. Very limited. You can have sides, your script, piece of paper, right? You should bring your sides in, by the way, just in case you forget your line or something like that. You don't have the luxury of doing 20 takes like you can with a self-tape. So you bring your sides in just as a backup, but you can use them like a clipboard. You can reading things off the clipboard, or you're like looking at some kind of piece of paper, or you're handing somebody something, or you're receiving something from someone. All of these things happen in auditions frequently. So, that you can bring in. A phone. It's okay to bring in a phone. It's all right. Talking on the phone, right? You don't have to mime it. Make sure it's off, okay? Turn it off. Then you can use it. Don't have it ringing in the middle of the audition. So there's that. You can also bring in a bag, whether it's a purse or some kind of a briefcase or a computer bag or something like that. That's okay, as long as, it's not getting in your way and not encumbering your audition. You want to make sure that it's there for your use. When do these come in handy? They come in handy when you have long periods where you're not speaking necessarily, but the given set of circumstances, it has you doing business, right? Like you're filling out a form, or you're washing the dishes, or whatever you're doing, or you're ready to go. You're getting ready to go. Oh, Sam, I got to get out of here, and you start packing your bag and putting things in. But in the meantime, you're talking to you and you're listening and so on. It just sort of the activity, the physicality that you're put into the scene. You got to be somewhat realistic, like that could happen in that situation, in that scene. But it also gives that kind of like magical feel to it. In other words, no one's really looking at your acting so much. You're just doing things that are realistic. You get good at it after a while, doing that kind of stuff. You just got to practice a lot. Do it a lot. One other thing about live auditions in person is that you have a reader. Okay, so what's the normal protocol? So you go to the audition. There's usually a sign-in sheet of some sort and a person there, maybe, sometimes. And you wait till you're called. And you usually get called into the room by the reader. That's a good time to discuss any notes with each other about how this is going to go, right? For example, sometimes there are several scenes. You want to make sure you know where the breaks are. The camera's going to be shut off. Then you're going to do the second scene and so on. Sometimes you want to break in a scene when there's no necessarily break there. It depends. So also the reader may have instructions for you. That's usually where that happens, outside the room. And then you walk in. Okay? You walk in and you greet everyone that's there. You look them in the eye and you say hello and you be really up because you like to be there. These are your people. These are the people you want to be around, who you want to work with, who you want to collaborate with, who you want to create with. This is the place where you belong. So that needs to be evident. Otherwise, well, why would anybody work with you? Honestly. I mean, really. Think about it. Right? So show that. Allow that to be there. Excitement's cool. It's contagious. People love it. It's an exciting business. Sometimes when you're in it for a long time, as a director or producer or casting, it can be, like work. But, come in, remind them, this is a fun business, and show that you're having fun. That's key. That's where the best creativity happens, when you're in that kind of mode and mood. That doesn't mean, you can't be sad in a scene or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the overall, I want to create. I want to do this. I want to play. I want to play with you guys. Okay? You guys. Yes. So you go in the room and there you are saying hello to everybody. And, thanks for having me read, whatever. You have sort of a greeting you have. And then you get to work. Okay? On the floor, there'll be a T or an X or something like that. You go there. You stand on it. And you're there because the lighting's good. There's probably a microphone hanging down. If you look up, it's hanging down there so they can get your sound properly. And it's the best spot to be. That doesn't mean you have to be standing there the whole time. Rigid, no. I mean, some auditions call for that, but really, it doesn't mean you have to only stand on the mark. You can move around. Camera guy can move the camera operator. You know, that's it's okay. I mean, if it's a big move, you might want to tell the camera person, you know, like I'm going to do a flip here or whatever. Tell them so they know, and you tell them when it's going to happen. But otherwise, you know, movements usually aren't that big, but you can move. You know, I can't stand seeing an audition, a self-tape especially, where you look like you're at an audition in a box, saying your lines, trying to remember. That's not what you're doing. Memorization is way low down on the priority. Yes, you got to know your lines, but you got to be the character in the scene and doing what you should be doing in that scene, and imagine it. Imagine the place. Imagine the ocean. Smell it. Yeah. You know, get your imagination working for you so you create that atmosphere and people they'll believe you're there. And that's what you want, okay? And that will give you an effective audition. Great. You do your audition, you're done. You have that moment before. There's also a moment after, right? It's not written. It's not in the script. The scene ends. Do you add dialogue? Some people do. Some people improv or give, you know, some kind of line at the end. I find it's better if you think that line instead of say it. Otherwise it would be written already. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I find most of the time it's better if you just think it. Give it those few moments after the scene. Don't just stop right after the scene. Whether it's self-tape or a real in-person audition, let it linger. Give it a few moments. We need that footage. You know, if you know how movies are made, we need that footage after so that we can cut to the next scene. The character's not dead. Stay alive. Just because the scene ended doesn't mean they ended. So continue. Follow your impulses at that moment. It'll look great and it'll be real and you'll be the character. That's very key to good acting, of course. So, you're done. Okay, you finish. You thank everybody. Thank you, and you leave. Yeah, you don't ask to do it again. Never. Why? Why would you do it again? You're a pro. You did it. If you are in the running and they want to redirect, they will redirect you. See, if you ask to do it again, you are now throwing out a couple ideas. One is, yeah, that wasn't my best, so I can do better. Okay. I've seen people do this. I'm directing, I'm looking at the audition. They come in and they do the scene and then they say they want to do it again. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, if I have time. Guess what? It's not really that different. You're not going to change it that much to go from you don't have the role to, oh my God, you have the role. What happened there? Not going to happen. But you still may get a redirect. And if you get a redirect, you just do what the director says. That redirect doesn't mean you did a lousy job. It's usually done to see if you can take direction. Can you change? Can you redirect yourself? You know, what the director says. They want to work with someone who can actually take direction. Can you take direction and actually change? That's a good sign if they're redirecting. And it's not a bad sign if they don't redirect you either, okay? So, we're buying confidence as filmmakers from actors. And if you finish and you exit, that's confidence. I'm telling you, it exudes confidence that you are a pro and you know what to do. One of the things that tells me about a pro actor is how they handle mistakes, okay? Just want to bring that up. You know, actors make mistakes on set, pro actors, big superstars. Some of them are better than others, but you know, you make mistakes. That happens. When a pro makes a mistake, they handle the mistake. They either ride right through it and continue, or they just reset and redo. An amateur or someone with very little experience collapses. They think, oh my God, I forgot my line. I'm terrible. I'm just awful. It's terrible. You know, they just crumble. And yeah, that's okay. You know, we all started somewhere, so, you know, it's understood. But are you going to get the lead? Probably not. So, you know, you got to be able to handle mistakes so you don't avoid them. You can't go in an audition going, I'm going to avoid all my mistakes. I cannot mess up at all, ever. I have to be perfect. I have to nail it. Don't do that. I don't advise that at all. Just go in, be loose. If it happens, it happens. If it's a self-tape, no big deal. If it's in person, they understand. Just reset yourself or just glide right over it. Because really what happens is when you walk in the room, you know, we know if you're in the running or not that fast before you audition. If you're not, you're not. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter. Yes, we want to see your work and we'll note that. And if it's really good work, someday we'll work with you if we can. But, you know, if you're not in the running, you're not in the running. And that can be seen rather quickly, within seconds. So that's a whole nother story. How do you get into the right rooms for the right roles? That's marketing, agent, casting, director, all that stuff lined up and working properly. But for now, it's like, yeah, we're going to know. So what you're going to do in that audition isn't really going to change things greatly. So don't try to do it again. Don't try to correct yourself and don't collapse. Please don't collapse. It's okay to make mistakes. It is. Have the freedom to make mistakes, okay? Just enjoy that freedom. You'll be a better actor for it. And in the meantime, keep on booking.